Now, the technology is like FSD, right? What's the mean by FSD? Full stack development. Okay. Now, before like 4 years back, like there is no FSD simply here. Okay, now we have only front end and back end, both are separate. Or DBA, the database admins. Okay, now we have separated developers here. We have. Okay, now why the FSDs are trending now? Okay, what is the reason? Do you have any idea from your side? Online. Okay, if you are unable to speak, you can use the chat. Now, why the FSD trending? Okay, already we have like front end. For suppose if you want to design front end application for suppose Amazon, Flipkart. Now we are going to develop like a front end developer we can call. Okay, if you want to develop like back end applications like a back end developer here we have. If you want to develop database thing, database admin developer here we have. So what's the mean by FSD then? Why the full stack developers came into the picture? What is the need from your side? You can think. Just guess it. Online, anyone?
Instead of hiring both front end and back end, they are hiring only full stack.
Exactly. That's a point. The good point. Now see here, for suppose like I'm hiring like 6 members, like simply here 2 members like front end, 2 members back end, one member like for the database admin. Okay, now we need to spend more money on the 6 persons, the 5 persons simply. For example, instead of that 5 persons, now we need to give allowances like salaries, everything. For suppose instead of that 5 persons, okay, I can like suppose only 3 members, like full stack developers. Okay, now we can spend less money. Means what like the company will get the more profits. Okay, now every industry is looking for the profit. Okay, every industry is looking for the profits only, not profits. Okay, profits only. Now because of the reason only the FSDs are trending. Okay, now one more reason simply here, the front end work is done. Okay, now whenever the front end work is doing simply here, the back end developer and database developer are waiting for the front end. Okay, now again the back end developer is working, database are waiting. Simply they are going to other people are enjoying. Okay, without wasting time, we are also wasting the time. Now, for every client, whatever the client, now we need to give within a less time that application. For suppose my requirement, I want to create like one more Amazon application. Okay. Now I ask to developer like, can you give within 2 weeks? Okay. But suppose if I follow like this way, the older way, okay, it will take a lot of time. Not only 2 weeks, it will take like 2 years also. Okay. Now instead of that, I'm going to recruited 3 persons, the full stack. Now these 3 persons working continuously. Now they know about front end, back end, and database. Okay, the completely. Now, for suppose the requirements simply here, whenever the requirements are happening, Amazon hiring like only the front end candidates. Okay. Now, if you learn only front end, it's allowed. But suppose you learned back end, but openings are front end. Is it okay? No. Or suppose you learn FSD. Now we can allow. Okay. But suppose that IBM is accepting like only the backend developer. The only backend. What about the front end developer? It's a waste of time. Now meanwhile FSD, the priority. For suppose now we are going to learn as a FSD developer, we are not going to learn the entire database. Okay, whatever the developer, Java developer need, the basics of database only we can learn. But even the database like recruitment as a FSD, now we can enter. Means what? The recruitment like more opportunities as a FSD. Okay, that's the purpose simply here. Nowadays, the trending in the market FSD one. Okay. Now, if you observe that simply here, whenever you want to new to the application, okay, for suppose still now you're not installed any application, Amazon application. Now directly, can you book the order? Then what is the process? First, we need to install, sign in or sign up. What's the difference between sign up and sign in?
Sign in is we have already account. Sign up is we want to create new account.
Exactly. Now sign up in the sense like we need to create the account. Okay. At the time of sign up, they are going to enter all the details. The details are permanently stored in the database. The next time onwards, you're not going to write all the details. You need to provide only the username and password. Okay. Now if you enter the wrong username simply here, we are going to get error. Please check username and password. How it's going to be validated? Okay. Now in the backend we have some technology. Now in the database, If both are matching, simply here we are going to get the home page. Okay, otherwise we are going to get errors. Okay. Now, how the flow is now, but you are interacting with the front layer, but the checking validations in the back end. Okay, in the front layer also we are going to some validations, but nowadays in the world, let's suppose like in the 90s, simply here now there is no validations in the front end. The entire validations are back end only. Nowadays the JavaScript added to some validations. You know that like cookies, all these concepts. Okay. Now, how the flow is happening? For suppose in the front layer, if you open like Amazon something, for suppose I will go to like a Flipkart. Okay, this is our Flipkart application. Okay, now if you want to design this layer, okay, it's a front layer, whatever the user can see. Okay, now whatever the user can interacting, see that. Okay, I can add to the cart, everything I can interact that. Okay, now simply you can call like a UI layer, user interface layer, or present. Okay, presentation layer, user interface layer. Okay, the client layer also we can say that. Okay, how to design this layer? Now we need to learn some technologies. Okay, what are the technologies to learn to design this thing? HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Okay, now we have some frameworks like React.js and Vue.js and AngularJS also. Okay, for suppose like by using HTML, CSS. For suppose if I remove CSS, what will happen for this? Okay, now it's not looking good, right? Okay, it's a combination of all the technologies. For suppose my requirement, I want to remove that CSS from this application. Okay, now here it is your Flipkart. Is it okay? Simply here, it's looking good. Oh, it's not asking. Now it is our application. Simply, it's not looking good. As a user, now we are interacting. Simply here, the application looking good and beautiful. For suppose if you want to buy like a 5 rupees chips packet, if it's a neat and clean and style, okay, the shining, okay, then only the children can like eat. They're going to interact with that. Okay, they're going to use eat everywhere, every time. Now whenever that application is, if you want to interact the more customers, now we need that application neat and clean and beautiful. Okay, then only we can interact. Now, that's why if you want to design any application, now we need to consider based on the technologies and all the concepts we need to consider. Okay, for suppose I'm going to enable the styles. Now, okay, now with the CSS it's looking like this. Okay, now without JavaScript also, now you need a combination of JavaScript and CSS and HTML. What is the difference between these three, HTML, CSS, and JavaScript? Do you have any idea? Any idea? The first question in the front end, as a interviewer, if you went like any front end interview, what is the difference between like HTML, CSS, and JavaScript? Those were completed. Any idea? Yeah. Now you can take like HTML. It's for the structure. Okay, like a pillar. Simply you can take that. Okay. Now if you want to add some styles, looking beautiful. Okay, if you want to interact with an application, simply now we need to add some colors. These colors, different radiation. Simply here, radiance. Now we can go with the CSS. Okay. Now everything is done. Home is done. I created like with the paints, all these things. Now what about like doors and movements, the windows? Okay, how the movements is going to be happen? Now because of the JavaScript, the validations, okay, the page to page interactions, okay, everything is going on by using JSON. Okay, by using HTML and CSS, JavaScript also we can design that application. Okay, we can design application, but it will take like a 1 year time, as well as we can write like a 1 lakh lines of code. Okay, now by using these three technologies, we can design any application, but it will take 1 year and 1 lakh lines of code we need to write. Okay, to reduce the time, to reduce number of lines of code, now we are using the frameworks. Okay, the frameworks. I'm poor in spellings. Okay, don't comment. Okay, now we are using the frameworks. Okay, in the front end, if you want to decrease the time, if you want to decrease the number of lines of code, now we can use the some frameworks. Now React.js. Okay, now AngularJS. Okay, Vue.js. Okay, Vue.js. Nowadays the React is a trending. Okay, now the popularity is a more React.js. Why? In the sense we have some the DOM structure. Okay, because of these frameworks, now we can reduce the time, we can reduce the lines of code also. Simply here. Now, whenever you want to visit like some what's that, like Jodi or something. Okay, you are stitching any cloth or you are buying directly? Buying instance already the cloths are there. Okay, based on our requirement, based on our sizes, we can buy directly. Okay, now if you want to buy the cloth, you want to stitch, you need to give the dimensions, everything. It will take a lot of time. Okay, directly I want to take it. Now, whatever that applications you want to create by using these three technologies, it will take a lot of time. Why? Is when you write a lot of code. Already, if it is a frameworks, the functionality is already there. Okay, which functionality you want to just pick it up, use that. Okay, within a less time we can use that. Okay, now because of the framework, within a less time we can create an application. That is the purpose of the framework. Okay, now the front end is okay. Now, this front end, whatever the data I entered, then how we are going to validate it? For suppose I'm going to take like WhatsApp. Okay. Now, whenever we open eyes in the morning, simply our hand is looking for something. What? Phone. Okay. Now, with the phone, simply the first thing is open WhatsApp and Instagram, checking for like girlfriend, boyfriend messages immediately. Okay. Now, what is a WhatsApp is providing? Which kind of services WhatsApp is providing? Services. What are the services we are using by using WhatsApp? Now we can chat, we can call, we can video call, we can add a call, we can add contacts. Okay, we can create a group. Now recently we can add payments also. Okay, now these are the services it's providing by the WhatsApp. Okay, now the services, if you want to provide the services, simply here, what is the limit of contact list? For suppose like 300, 400, more than 300, like we cannot add the number of persons. Okay, that is the list. Now the conditional related, the conditional data. Okay, the like suppose business logic, simply here we can say like that. Now business logic, now we can write in the backend only. Okay, now these logics, okay, the business logic, the services, everything we are going to write in the backend only. Okay, now if you want to, whatever the user is entering into the front end, okay, now based on the front end data, the data going to be validated in the backend. Okay, now you are asking one doubt, why don't we use the front end only? The front end also we can validate something, but less amount. Okay, less amount. Okay, in the olden days, simply here everything is a validation is done by like in the backend only. Okay, validation on the backend. Okay, then why they added into the front end also? Validation in the sense like a condition checking, username and password, email ID, the validations like that. Okay, now if you want to only backend, simply here it's a burden on the backend directly. Okay, for suppose I want to check a username, password, mail ID, phone number, everything. Okay, now again internal also we have again validation checking. For suppose these 5 validations I checked in the front end, it is a avoiding the burden on the backend server. Okay, for suppose if you want to see like your results, the inter results, at the same day if you want to, every person is okay requesting the same website, something is happening, what? Server is busy. Means what? Like the number of requests to the server is more. Okay, whenever the requests are more, the service down. Okay, the same thing here will happen. If you want to check the more number of validations at a time, okay, the application going to be down, the server going to be down. Now because of to reduce that validation time, the front end sometime, okay, some validations in the front end will check, then latter final check is going to be in the back end. Means what? We can reduce the burden time. Okay, now again database, simply here. Okay, now what are the technologies we can use a backend? Any idea? What are the technologies or we can use in the backend? The front end, you said like HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Now Java, now Python, .NET. Okay, now we have like mm, now we have like many. Okay, in the database, simply here. Okay. Now SQL, MySQL is the same. Mm. Now which is the database? SQL is the database or MySQL is the database? What about SQL then?
Queries.
Mm.
Queries, how we write that is SQL and MySQL is
Mm.
data.
Exactly. Okay, now more members confusing, simply here. Whenever you some person are asking like what is the database you learned? Okay, don't say like SQL. Okay, now databases are MySQL, like MongoDB, Sybase, DB2, Oracle, PostgreSQL. Okay, like there are many. Okay, SQL is the one language to interact with the database. Okay, SQL is one of the language. If you learn SQL, we can interact with any database. For suppose you learn driving by using like Innova. Innova you can drive. For suppose if you want to download like that Creta, suppose it will take some time like 2 minutes. Okay, to drive, like to maintain like all these things. Now after 5 minutes, you can drive everything. Means what? The same thing will happen. If you learn SQL, first we can learn MySQL, then immediately we can learn every databases. Okay, MongoDB is separate. Okay, it's a no SQL. Okay, the SQL languages are MySQL, like PostgreSQL, Oracle, DB2, MongoDB is a NoSQL. Okay, now there are no tables, all these things. Okay, if it is a database, whatever we are learning, we can use the tables. Okay, why the tables? In the sense we can store. Username is a one row. Okay, password is a one row. Tables in the sense rows and columns, right? Now we can store our data in the form of tables. Okay, in the case of NoSQL, MongoDB, simply we can say that. Okay, now where we can use documents. Okay, files, simply we can say that we can store the data into the documents, not for the tables. Okay, now in the database, simply here, why the database? What is the need of database there? What is the requirement? Storing data. By using backend also I can create, right? Okay, I can create one file, one normal document file. I can store it here also. Why need database? Okay, observe carefully here. If it's a normal file, some space here we have. We cannot store the huge amount of data. Okay, if you want to store the huge amount of data, as well as we need security also. For suppose simply here, in the laptop I stored, like I created one file. Okay, now in this file I stored sensitive data, my company's username, passwords, like their billing address, everything. Okay, if I store like that, there will be a chance of stolen. Okay, now what I did, I want to store like a huge amount of data. I want security also. Okay, the security also. Now because of that, the database, if you want to interact with your database, we need to provide username and password. Okay, password, as well as we can store a huge amount of data. Okay, huge amount of data. Now, and again one more point simply here, easily maintenance. Okay, now for suppose I created my Facebook like earlier, like 12 years back. Okay, still I can access the first message, whatever I created, whatever I shared. How? In the sense what? They arrange data like that. Okay, the billions of people are using the Facebook, not only me, the billions of people. The billions of people, they are going to their data, they are going to store somewhere. Within a millisecond, how I can get my data? Okay, the sorting mechanism, the arranging mechanism will be like that in the database. Okay, now that's why simply here, easily maintenance. Even the huge amount of data, we can maintenance easily. Okay, for suppose the Facebook using like billions of people. For suppose like they are having like the storages. Okay, now data warehouses. Okay, data warehouse in the sense where we can store the huge amount of data. Okay, for suppose the countries here we have like Germany, like London and India. For suppose India is collapsed with like earthquakes, all these things. One data warehouse here we have in India. Okay, now for suppose if I send to my friend like one message, the data going to be stored in the India, London and Germany. Okay, why three places they are using the data warehouses? For suppose one country is collapsed with something like storms, all these things. Data warehouses collapsed. Again, I want to build up. I want to store the data, retrieve the data. I can retrieve the data from other countries. Okay, that's why the data warehouses they can build in the different countries. Okay, now how the flow is going on. Whenever I enter the username password, how it's going to manipulate and checking with the database. Observe carefully here. Online, are you listening or sleeping? Are you there? Can you hear me?
Sir, listening.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes, sir.
No. Now here as a user, now we are interacting with the front end framework and completely back end framework. And in the back end, we have server side environment. Why? What is the server side in the sense? The URLs. Okay, observe carefully here. Front end is one application. For suppose by using React, I can design one application. Okay, the front layer. By using backend, by using Java, I create like data. Database is different. How the data is going to be entered front end to back end to the database. Okay, in the front layer, now I'm using one framework that is a React.js. Okay, in the React.js, we have one concept, Axios concept. Simply we can say like Ajax call. Simply we can say in the JavaScript. Okay, the URLs. For suppose simply here, if you want to movie, if you want to watch movie, what we need? Simply the location, the URL we need. Now without URL, can I open any movie? Can I open any website? No. Even though if you want to send the data from one application to another application, then our application URL we need to send. Okay. Now I'm going to enter my details, a username, password, all these things. I want to validate it. Okay. The request will send to like a front end to the back end. Okay. Again, in the back end, we have three layers. Okay. Basically, we have three layers: front end layer, back end layer, database. Okay. In the back end also, we have three layers. Okay. The layers are again a presentation layer. If you observe that. Okay. Now we have separate concept layered architecture. We can discuss in the back end. See here. In the back end, the presentation layer, service layer, data access layer. Simply we can say DAO layer. Okay. Now domain objects. This class is a main. Without this domain objects, you cannot create any application. Why in the sense? For suppose I want to book my order. Okay, I want to book my laptop. Now we need to select some items, right? Okay, which RAM you want? Okay, which graphics you want? Okay, all these things. That is a list. The list items selected names. For suppose like RAM. Okay, all these items simply here. The domain object we need to represent. Okay, for suppose simple one for your understanding purpose. Yeah, login form. Okay, login form. What are the details we have in the login form? Username, first name, last name. These details are we are going to write in the domain object. So, okay, now whatever the data I entered, those data going to be stored in the domain object. They are going to interact with the application layer. Okay, now the request will come from the front end layer, React. It will enter into the presentation layer in the back end. Okay, now that it will enter into the service layer, business layer, then data access layer, then finally store into the database. Okay, this thing will happen in the front end to back end. Okay, now why these three layers in the back end? What is the need? Okay, now what is the need of these three layers in the back end? Okay, to get the security. Okay, to get the security. For suppose in the single file, if I write 1 lakh lines of code, okay, now we are going to get some issues. For suppose after working like 3 hours, okay, in the single file I wrote like 1 lakh lines of code. Okay, now one line is going to interact some like another lines also. If I get like only one line error, whatever that interacted like lines, simply everything is going to be get error. If you want to find out the bug, it will take a lot of time. What I did, for suppose we have like login button, logout button, all these things, right? Okay, I wrote code, login code separate, logout code separate, home page code is separate. Okay, now if I did like that, for suppose I entered home page, I added to cart like all the products, logout button is not working. Still I can add products, I can book the order, but I cannot log out. Means what here? The logout code only issue. Directly I will go to the logout code, I can fix the bug. For suppose login, logout, homepage code I wrote in the single file, simply complete application going to be get error. Okay, if you want to resolve that error, it will take a lot of time. Okay, now that's why this many layers we are going to divide. Now we can share the logic, the data layer by layer. Okay, for the hacker also it will implement. It is difficult to hack the code. If I divide like did you observe like firewall system simply here, the number of firewalls. Okay, the layers are going to be happen to the firewalls. Simply they cannot access that. Okay, now every hacker is trying to find out the loophole. Okay, but suppose if your account is public, I can see your post, I can read your comments. For suppose if it's a private, I cannot see. The only person whatever you created, you can only the visibility, but I cannot see your post, I cannot read your comments also. Okay, that thing will happen. Now finally the data going to be stored into the database. Okay, now in the back end, okay, in the front end we can use the Axios concept. In the back end we can use like the web services. Okay, the restful URLs. Okay, now we can create the URLs. Okay, now already you learned complete front end, right? But suppose simply here, how the backend I can check. As a backend developer, I developed an application, backend application. How I can check? Okay, that application is working properly or not? How I can check? For suppose we have in the backend the frameworks are. Did you remember any frameworks in the backend? The Spring, the Spring Boot,
Node.js.
Node.js also. Here we have. Okay, now the Spring and Spring Boot. In the Spring concept, simply we can use like a web services. Okay, now in the web services we have the concept of RESTful URLs. Okay, RESTful URLs. Okay, simply here, observe carefully here. In the React.js, okay, now the URL are reacting with the Axios. This URL going to accept web services. Okay, by using web services, we can use like RESTful concept. Okay, now this RESTful the URL. Okay, in the URL we have some data. We have like get request, post request, all these things here. The data going to be finally stored into the database. Okay, now this is the flow from front end to back end. Okay, in the back end, if you want to create that application, simply first we need to learn if it is Java, like core Java. Okay, if it's a Python, core Python. Okay, now in the case of like frameworks, we have in the Java Spring and Spring Boot. In the case of like Python, Django, like the Flask, all these things here we have. Okay, now but how the application is looking. For suppose the main important coding, if you're not perfect in the backend, the application is not looking good. Okay, even though whenever you create like front end application, if you want to create like beautiful application in the front end side, if you're not working properly in the backend, it's not looking good. Okay, now I will show you something. Observe carefully here. Now it is a front end. By using front end, we can design. Did you observe? It's a one man face simply here. It's a front end. Back end here. If you did a mistake in the back end simply here, it's looking good. No, it's not good. So how is arranged like that? Okay, now means what? If you want to looking the beautiful all these things, if you want to work properly in the front end, the design each and every code and every line in the back end should be most important thing. Okay, if I did mistake anything in the back end simply here, it's a waste of time. Okay, now that's thing we need to consider everything to write the code in the back. Okay, for suppose now it is a one application like the Spring Tool Suite here. If I place a here, Spring Tool Suite, it is a framework. Now here I can write like code of a Spring Boot code. Okay, it is one application, right? One application. We have VLC Media Player and Spring Tool Suite also one application. See here I can see place the cursor Postman. Okay, these applications are different or same? Facebook or Instagram same? Other. Now the Spring Tool Suite one application, Postman is a one application. Okay, now how I can check my application is by using Postman only. Okay, now whatever the URL I have, that URL I'm going to post in the Postman. The request will go to the backend Spring Boot to the database. It will check again the database to Spring Boot to the Postman. I can see that. Okay, now this Postman, our backend developer is acting as a front layer. Okay, now as a backend developer, right now we are only backend developers. Okay, then how I can check the data? Okay, basically we are going to check the data in the front layer only, but we don't have any front layer, right? We don't know like any front end technologies. Then how I can check? By using Postman, whatever the URLs here, this URL, I'm going to send the request to like posting. Okay, get post put all these things. Okay, I'm sending the request here. Now, if I get the data simply here, sending the request here, it's sending the request to the backend. Okay, now back into the database. Okay, there it will check. If it is there, the data going to be displayed in the response. Okay, here the response. Here it will display. If the data is came back to this application, the application is working properly fine. Okay, if anything miss simply here, see here. Now we are getting this error. Means what? Where something is happening. The code is wrong. But the request is not properly arranged. Okay, now we are going to check our backend application by using the Postman. Now we have one more like Swagger also. Both Postman and Swagger both are same. Okay, some companies are using Swagger, some companies are using Postman. Okay, now what's the next thing? Okay, now this is about like that full stack. Now what is the FSD? Are you clear? Any doubt here? Online.
Clear, sir.
Yeah. Offline. Clear? Any doubts? ఇంతవరకు కోర్ జాబ్కి ఎంటర్ అవ్వాలి. ఓకే, టుమారో ఎంటర్ అవ్వాలి. క్లియర్ అయిందా? ఇంకేం డౌట్స్ ఉన్నాయి ఇందులో? ఎఫ్ఎస్డి అంటే ఏంది, ఒక లేయర్ టు లేయర్ ఇంటరాక్షన్ ఎలా అవుతుంది, డాటా అనేది ఎలా ఫ్లో అవుతుంది. ఓకే, క్లియర్? నా I will go with the syllabus simply here. Okay, in the front end syllabus, you know that like okay. The front end syllabus we have like what is the full stack, all these things. You know that HTML tags, all these things. Okay, here also we are going to learn some tags in the Spring Boot level, but not for HTML. It is a XML. What's I mean by XML? Extensible markup language. Okay, what is the difference between HTML and XML? Don't say X is a different. Any idea?
In XML, we don't have tags. Predefined. We will.
Exactly. Now in the XML, we can write predefined as well as user defined. For suppose I want to write my name, Satya tag, I can write in the XML. Okay. Through network, I can use that XML, but HTML is a static. Okay. Now with the CSS, you know that like selectors and stylings, all these things here we have. The JavaScript, same as like Java, but it's not Java. Okay. Now if you learn JavaScript simply here, the basics of Java are easy. Okay, but not same. Bootstrap is the framework, you know that. Okay, in the Reacts here, observe carefully here. If you learn that JavaScript, the React and Vue.js and AngularJS both are easy, but not for same. Easy to understand. Okay, now in the React, navigation is the most important thing, and something like the React Essentials simply here. This one, okay, and this one API request. By using these concepts only, now we can send the request front end to back end. Okay, now by using the front end. For suppose in the back end simply here. Now the JVM, JRE, JDK, it's related to the Java. Okay, now see here, data types, we know the concept in JavaScript also. You can take any technology, either C++ or Java or .NET or anything. The common concepts are data types and the flow controls. You know that like if else statements here we have, those are the common. Okay, but concepts wise different, but every concept is the same. Okay, now writing the code is a different. Now variables, okay, you know that like, okay, now naming conventions and keywords. Naming convention, for suppose in JavaScript I'm using different naming convention, but in Java I can use a different naming convention. Okay, in JavaScript I can write class name in the lowercase or uppercase, anything, but here I can write in the capital case only. Okay, that is a different naming conventions we need to follow. If it is Java, we don't need to compare like Java and JavaScript. Java is a different, JavaScript is a different. Okay, Java word in the JavaScript came by the Java only. Okay, JavaScript is for suppose like before the JavaScript, the first name is like LiveScript. Okay, before the LiveScript we have the Mocha. Okay, no, after LiveScript simply here the customers are not more simply here. The JavaScript people find out that Java, in those days Java is most popular. Okay, now they find out, they ask to Java people, give the word Java. Okay, now Java people Java word istene JavaScript time. Because of the reason only the JavaScript is so popular nowadays. Okay, now the keywords here we have. Now basically in the core Java we have like 53 keywords here we have. 2 are unused. Okay, go to and constant we are not going to use, remaining 51. If you learn the 51 keywords, the core Java is done. Okay, now core Java matra nenu pelli kootu nachinattu elta, and whenever we'll enter like advanced simply here, so one day matram express. Okay, why? In the sense the everything, the explanation, the concepts, everything we can understand the core Java only. Okay, for each and every concept I will explain each and one example. Okay, now you need to understand, you need to practice core Java. If you learn core Java simply, it is easy, advanced, within a week we can complete. That much easy. Operators, you know that like constructors, you know that in the JavaScript also here we have, in Java also we have, but little bit different. Flow controls, decision making, iterative and jumping statements, if else statements, switch statement. Okay, now what we have like do while loop, for loop. Okay, in the JavaScript we have like for of loop, for in loop, but here we have one for each loop and for loop only we have. Now oops concept, in the JavaScript also we have the oops. Okay, now it's a little bit different, the coding is different. keywords. Now this super finally we are using in the JavaScript also, right? Okay, arrays concept in the JavaScript. Completely different arrays and strings. Okay, for suppose simply here, if you want to fix that word, the age is 26. I want to fix that, the final keyword. How I can make it as constant? By using constant keyword in the JavaScript. I want to change that 26 to 28. Can I change? Yes or no? ఫిక్స్డ్ వాల్యూ కావాలి నాకు మొత్తం. ఎలా యూజ్ చేస్తాం జావాస్క్రిప్ట్లో? కాన్స్టెంట్ కీవర్డ్ యూజ్ చేస్తాం. కెన్ ఐ మాడిఫై దట్? నో, వీ కెనాట్ మాడిఫై. బట్ జావాస్క్రిప్ట్ ఆబ్జెక్ట్ లెవెల్ ఐ కెన్ మాడిఫై ద కాన్స్టెంట్ కీవర్డ్. ఓకే, ఇప్పుడు అదే కాన్స్టెంట్ మామూలుగా వేరియబుల్ డిక్లేర్ చేసినప్పుడు ఎట్లా కాన్స్టెంట్ ఏజ్ ఈక్వల్ 26 ఇస్తాం. బట్ వేరియబుల్ లొకేషన్లో మనం చేంజ్ చేయలేం. బట్ వెన్ ఎవర్ ఐ డిసైడ్ కాన్స్టెంట్ ఏజ్ ఈక్వల్ 26 ఇన్ ద ఆబ్జెక్ట్, ఐ కెన్ చేంజ్ దట్. అంటే ఏంటి, బేసిక్గా కాన్స్టెంట్ వేరియబుల్ ఒక వాల్యూ అసైన్ చేస్తే మనం చేంజ్ చేయలేము. కానీ జావాస్క్రిప్ట్లో అరేస్ అండ్ ఆబ్జెక్ట్ లెవెల్లో మనం చేంజ్ చేయొచ్చు. దట్స్ పాసిబుల్. ఓకే, ద మోస్ట్ కన్ఫ్యూజింగ్ టెక్నాలజీ ద జావాస్క్రిప్ట్లో ఉంది. కొంచెం తిక్కగా ఉంటుంది. ఓకే, నా strings also will be the same. The methods whatever we are using in the JavaScript are looking same as some methods are same, the strings and arrays. JVM architecture. Okay, we have Java virtual machine. Okay, this is our code is executing by JVM only. Now exception handling. What's the mean by exception handling? Do you have any idea? You have an idea on the exception handling? The exception and you have an idea on that? Error. Okay. మీరు డైలీ లైఫ్లో యూజ్ చేస్తారు, మీరు డైలీ లైఫ్లో చూస్తుంటారు ఎర్రర్స్, ఇలాంటి ఎర్రర్స్ చూస్తారు. ఇప్పుడు మీరు మెయిల్ ఐడి ఓపెన్ చేశారు, రాంగ్ యూజర్ నేమ్ ఎంటర్ చేస్తే ఏమొస్తారు? ప్లీజ్ ఎంటర్ వ్యాలిడ్ యూజర్ నేమ్. ఇప్పుడు మన ఆ వర్డ్ అనేది మనకు అర్థమవుతుందా లేదా? దట్ ఈస్ రిటన్ బై ద డెవలపర్. ఈచ్ అండ్ ఎవ్రీ క్యారెక్టర్, ద రెడ్ కలర్ ఆల్సో వి ఆర్ గివింగ్ యాజ్ ఎ డెవలపర్. Basically, if you are not using exception and concept in any technology, we cannot understand that error. Okay, for suppose the error will be like that, ORA 1 2 3. What's the meaning of that? We cannot understand. For suppose whenever you enter ATM machine, you enter wrong PIN number, you are getting like ORA 1 2 3. What's the meaning of that? Our fathers and mothers they don't know about the Java language. As a developer, I can understand it's related to database, but they cannot understand. Whatever the error if you happen, the reason is what? Okay, the reason mana reason rayali enduku error vachindi. Okay, you are entered invalid PIN. Okay, that exception I can understand. Okay, by seeing that line I can re-enter my PIN number, correct number. Okay, our exception and ee concept use chese manam handle chestam. Okay, basically ee exception concept lekunte edaithe exceptions vastayo avi manaku ardham kaadu. That is a system defined exception. But here those system defined errors we can convert to user understandable errors. Okay, now that concept is the exception. Give me a minute.
Yes, sir. 1.75. 1.5. 0.75 normal I go database. I go database. Database DevOps.
Where the chipset? No. Next, multi-threading. Okay, the concept of multi-threading. Okay, now basically here we don't have any multi-threading concept. Some older technologies. Okay, why they are introducing the multi-threading concept here? For suppose, what's the mean by multi-threading basically here? Now, whenever you are listening online classes simply here, we are eating, we are watching web series, we are listening the same classes. Means what? We are doing the multiple tasks at a time. That's called multitasking. Okay, multiple tasks at a time. For suppose I'm eating, after that drinking, after that sleeping. It's not multitasking. It's multiple tasks. Multitasking in the sense doing the same task, all the tasks at a time. For suppose we are driving, we are listening to music, we are chit-chatting with the back persons. Okay, same time it's happening. Okay, why they introduce it? For suppose simply here you want to search one dress in that Flipkart. Okay, it's not loading, it's still like it's completely what's that? Loading only. It will take some time. Okay, take some time. Immediately we are waiting. No, we are going to open Amazon. Means what? As a user, that application is not responding. It will take more time. Okay, the response time is more. But by using multi-threading concept, the response time is less. Within a less seconds, simply here the application is interactive. Okay, now that's purpose like multi-threading. Okay, by default, Java has a rich multi-threading API. Okay, we can create multi-threading applications by using Java. Okay, the collection, the most important concept in the collection. Now, if you want to like any interview room without the collection question, simply you cannot get that. Okay, the most important concept. Okay, why the collection? What is the need of collection simply here? Now we have variable concept, we have arrays concept, we have the collection concept. So basically, these concepts are using to store the data. Okay, in the Java base. Variable, we can store only one value. Arrays, we can store only particular type. Okay, but in the case of JavaScript, we can store any type. ఓకే అరేస్ అంటే ఏంటి బేసిక్గా ఒకటే టైప్ మనం ఇంతవరకు విన్నది ఏంటి సిమిలర్ టైప్ ఆఫ్ డాటానే స్టోర్ చేస్తాం కానీ జావా స్క్రిప్ట్ లో మిక్స్డ్ టైప్ ఆఫ్ డాటా దట్స్ డిఫరెంట్ జావా స్క్రిప్ట్ ఓకే బట్ హియర్ ఆల్సో వీ కెన్ స్టోర్ ఓన్లీ సింగిల్ టైప్ collection compared to the arrays collection is advanced okay compared to the variables advanced is the arrays okay advanced of arrays is the collection advanced is the database okay that's it okay for a simple question scenario based question ఎలా అడుగుతారండి ఇంటర్వ్యూలో ఒక పర్సన్ తిరుపతికి ట్రైన్ టికెట్ బుక్ చేయాలి ఓకే అరేంజ్మెంట్ ఎలా బుక్ అవుతారు okay which kind of list you are using array list linked list vector and stack okay now we need to check based on requirements okay the scenario based questions they will ask sometimes okay whenever you have like 2 years of experience and 3 years of experience in the Java field they are going to raise this kind of scenario based questions okay next after the Java 8 features simply here the latest version is the 21 why still we are learning Java 8 only okay we have like 0 to 21 here we have nowadays is you know that like by using Python we can print in one line but by using Java 5 lines but nowadays the 21st version we can print 2 lines but whenever you are develop application we can have 5 lines code but whenever you are practicing in the 2 lines also you can execute okay they are going to concise the code Java also okay the 8 features are different compared to the like all the Java okay regular expressions what do you mean by regular expressions any idea daily we are using username phone number validation ఎలా చెక్ అవుతుంది ఫర్ సపోజ్ ఫోన్ నెంబర్ అనేది ఇండియన్ నెంబర్ అనేది 10 నెంబర్స్ ఉండాలి కంపల్సరీగా 11 నెంబర్స్ ఎంటర్ చేసినా కూడా అది కాల్ వెళ్తుందంటే అయినా we need to check some validation అంటే ఏంటి మనకు ఒక ప్యాటర్న్ ఇస్తుంది అందరికి తెలుగు వచ్చు కదా okay now we are giving some pattern based on the pattern if I entered a pattern related data it's going to be a match then only it can success otherwise the pattern I give you only 10 numbers but I entered 11 numbers in that case it's going to be generate some error okay not validated okay that's it by using the regular expression we can use like resistors and what's that like transistors TCP ICP okay protocols now we can use the regular expression concept okay now database next now here nowadays the trending is MySQL okay we can use the database things okay the main important concept in the database is subcategories okay without knowing this concept simply it's a waste of time to learn the database okay if you learn this thing we can learn Java easy also. Java say like we have the JPA concept here. Okay. Basically, we don't need database also as a Java people. We have JPA. Okay. The queries we can write by using JPA also. But we need to have some idea about like database. That's why. Next is JDBC. Okay. Why the JDBC simply here? Okay. By using JDBC in the sense of Java database connectivity. Okay. For suppose observe carefully here. Now up to 17 what? Up to 17 it's a Java. Okay. Up to 17 it's Java. 18 is what? It's a database. Okay. Now basically why we are using database? To store the data. Okay. మనకు database ఉంది. Data store చేయాలంటే every time మనం ఏంటి database open చేయాలి. యూజర్ నేమ్ ఇవ్వాలి, పాస్వర్డ్ every time ఇస్తూనే ఉండాలి. It's a waste of time. Why don't I want to open? Java can open automatically. Okay. మనం ఏం చేస్తున్నాం? Java database connectivity. By using Java, the Java can interact with the database. It can open. Okay. It can interact with that. It can store. మరి దానికి అదే ఓపెన్ అవుతుందా? ఫర్ సపోజ్ నా అకౌంట్ ఉంది, మీరు ఓపెన్ చేయాలి, ఒక పర్సన్ మెసేజ్ చేయాలి, ఎలా ఓపెన్ చేస్తారు? యూజర్ నేమ్ పాస్వర్డ్ ఇవ్వాలి కదా. యాజ్ ఎ database user name password, we need to give that Java. Then Java can interact with each other. That is a Java database connectivity, JDBC. Now we have JDBC some disadvantages simply here. That's why the Hibernate came into the picture, the JPA. Okay, the advanced the framework of JDBC is Hibernate and JPA. Okay. Now finally, after this done, next we'll go with like a framework, the Spring framework. Okay. Why Spring? Okay. Now up to JPA, like it's okay. Why Spring simply? You can take like whatever that application till now before 20, like 20 up to 20, we created that is a tightly coupled relation. For suppose one class to, for suppose we created one number of classes. The number of classes has a tightly coupled relation. If you have the tightly coupled relation, simply the application will not work properly. Okay. The Spring will give the loosely coupled. Okay. The loosely coupled. They can interact with each other, but it is giving the loosely coupled. Okay. There is no direct relation. Okay. That is the thing. That's why the Spring framework came in the picture. Now the main objective of Spring framework, within a less time, we can create enterprise applications. Okay. That's the main objective of Spring. Because Spring Boot is not a separate. Spring Boot is one of the part in the Spring. Okay. Spring and Spring Boot is not separate. Okay. Basically Spring లో మనకు 20 modules ఉంటాయి. 20 modules మనం నేర్చుకుంటాం. Only Spring Core is the main. అది Spring Core ఒకటి నేర్చుకుంటే remaining 19 modules are easy. Okay. If you learn the 20 modules, it will take 1 year. Okay. But if you have an idea core, we can learn easily. Okay. The Spring Boot is one of the 20 modules. Okay. Now why the Spring Boot? Why not Spring? Okay. మనం రాసే Spring లోనే కోడ్. కానీ Spring Boot ఎందుకు వచ్చింది? Now the purpose is RAD. RAD in the sense of rapid application development. Okay. Spring అనేది కొన్ని annotations ఉంటాయి. వాటికి ప్రీడిఫైన్ గా ఇవ్వలేదు. Spring Boot will provide చేస్తాం. ఎందుకు? అప్లికేషన్ డెవలప్ చేయడానికి ఇంకా స్పీడ్ డెవలప్ చేయడానికి Spring Boot యూజ్ అవుతుంది. That's the purpose the Spring Boot use. Within the Spring Boot, simply you know that the web services. Okay, here we are going to create the URLs. How URLs we are creating in the Axios concept in the React.js and Ajax calls in the JavaScript. The same way here we are going to create. We can interact with that both layers. Okay. మీకు డౌట్ రావచ్చు, మరి రియాక్ట్ తోని URL సెండ్ చేస్తే ఇక్కడికే ఎలా వస్తుంది? ఎక్కడి నుంచైనా సెండ్ చేయొచ్చు కదా డేటా. ఈ అప్లికేషన్కి ఎలా ఇంటరాక్ట్ అవుతుంది? మీన్స్ వాట్? సింప్లీ హియర్ every application is running on some port number. Okay, for suppose Oracle 8080, okay, React.js 30300, Angular 4200, okay, MySQL 6606. Okay, every application is running on some port number. Okay, from the React we are going to give some our application port number. Based on that port number only the request will come to that application. Okay, that's the purpose. Clear? Any doubt? Now up to this web service is done our Java. Okay, now finally here I will explain with React. Okay, so basically you completed JavaScript only, but my batch only at the existing example React I can explain. Okay, the final project, the existing project only we have, but I will explain only one project again with the React. Normal only backend again with React front. Now it is interacting. I will explain final one. Okay. Now till now any doubts? Clear? Any doubts now? Okay. మీకు ఏ డౌట్ వచ్చినా ఇక్కడ అడగాలి. ఓకే, సిగ్గుపడదు. ఓకే, సిగ్గుపడితే లావ్ అవుతారు. లావ్ అయితే మన జిమ్ డబ్బులు నన్ను అడగచ్చు. ఓకేనా? అది. ఇప్పుడు మీరు ఇక్కడ మీకు అర్థం కాలేదు, పైకి వెళ్తారు, హెచ్ఆర్కి ఇన్ఫార్మ్ చేస్తారు, హెచ్ఆర్ నాకు కాల్ చేస్తారు, ఇదంతా అవసరం. మీకు డౌట్ అయితే ఇక్కడ అడగండి. అట్స్ లేట్ ప్రాసెస్. ఇప్పుడు మీరు అవ్వాలి, వాళ్ళకి చెప్పాలి, 2-3 days అవుతుంది. ఆ 2-3 days మీ కాన్సెప్ట్